The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hi, this is Arlene, and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today we have two guests. They are now situated in the middle of the jungle in Pahang's Crow Wildlife Reserve, speaking to us on ASEAN's cooperation in large mammal conservation. So we have here Professor Dr. Ahimsa Campos-Arceiz. He's a scientist in the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. Hi, are you there?
Hi, hello.
Yeah, and also
Yes, I'm here.
and also we have Teck. He's the technical director of Resource Stewardship Consultant Sendirian Berhad.
Hi there.
Both of you guys are in the middle of the jungle right now, is it?
We are sort of in the middle of the jungle. We're actually in a building with aircon and Wi-Fi, but this building is at the entrance of Crow Wildlife Reserve. So then we are having the best of both environments right now.
Tell me more about what is your research or your expedition there at the Crow Wildlife Reserve.
Okay, right now we are doing a field course for students of the Master in Environmental Management and Monitoring at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. So then this is a field course on tropical ecology. We think that it's very important that our students become familiar with the tropical rainforest and that they understand the ecological patterns and processes. So then we bring them to Crow, and then there is this place called the Institute for Biodiversity, which is managed by the Department of Wildlife and National Parks, by Arlene Tan. And this is a perfect place for field courses because, as I said, we have facilities like good accommodation, there is a canteen, there is access to internet, but at the same time, we're just 5 minutes away from the rainforest. And then our students, they spend 1 week here, and during this week, we have a number of activities in daytime. So then we get up in the morning, go to the forest, do some field work, come back to IBD, and then at night we have a lecture about the work they will do the following day. So it is about 1 week of pretty intensive field work in things going from studying the mammal community with camera traps, studying the forest structure, or studying the ecology of tropical rivers. So it's quite an interesting program, I think.
And it's also the largest protected area in Pahang. I'm just wondering, how well protected the Pahang Forest Wildlife Reserve there?
I think it's the second largest protected area. I think the largest is Taman Negara Pahang. So then Crow is the second largest. This is a different status as protected area to Taman Negara. Taman Negara is a national park, and Crow is a wildlife reserve. As a wildlife reserve, it is entirely managed by Arlene Tan at federal level. So in a way, this makes the management processes kind of simpler, okay? Because it's not managed. It's managed only by the federal government, not by the federal and the state government. How protected it is? Well, I would say, like most of forest in Malaysia, there's an enforcement team, and there are attempts to protect the forest, but also there is some level of encroachment, and there is some level of illegal activities happening within the forest.
So, do you have first-hand experience in illegal activities that's happening in protected areas, like, for example, Pahang?
Well, in the place where we are, because we are very close to the headquarters of the Wildlife Department, there is not much illegal activity because the poachers will not come close to where the enforcement agencies are. But whenever you go deep into the forest, it is possible to find signs of encroachment, like sometimes illegal camps inside the forest, or you can see that the gajaro trees have been cut and harvested. So I think right now in Malaysia it is not difficult to find signs of encroachment in the forest, and I think it's one of the main concerns for the authorities that are now working very hard to increase the enforcement body and train more people to respond to this threat.
And I have a question for Teck, if you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have been you have a huge passion in terms of our wildlife protection and conservation, and also on the issues that is happening within the forest, like deforestation and all that. I'm just wondering, like, your involvement in this particular project, what do you see in terms of the rate of conservation that is happening in Malaysia right now?
Hi, well, that's quite a general question, but in this specific area, it's interesting. In the specific area of Krau, we have a huge expanse of natural forest, which is still covered by basically virgin jungle, and this is really quite a special treasure that we have, that it has not been logged, and it's generally well protected. In Malaysia, we have good laws in terms of protected area laws. The only issue, and it's somewhat a relatively minor issue, is that we have some poachers going in looking mostly for this precious incense wood that's known as agar wood, or in Malay it's called gaharu.
In Malay, would it be called kayu gaharu?
That's correct, yeah, kayu gaharu, which is mostly for export to the Middle East and to the Far East for incense, and also to be distilled into perfume.
Kayu gaharu, or they call it oud, right? Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
in Arabic, it's called oud.
It is considered a very expensive items to be market. Is that the case?
Yes, well, the pure gaharu, or the very high grade gaharu, can fetch up to 100,000 ringgit for just 1 kilogram.
Interesting. And that's where there's a huge black market for it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, most gaharu producing species, the tree species that produce gaharu, have been listed on CITES, which is the International Convention for the protection of species that are endangered and are traded internationally. And so any kind of international trade, such as export gaharu from Malaysia, would require a special permit. Because gaharu is listed on Appendix 2, which means that the trade is still allowed, but it must be proved to be sustainable trade. And so far, Malaysia has not issued any licenses for collecting gaharu, and so there should be no international trade from Malaysia of gaharu. But unfortunately, the trade goes on. It's mostly smuggled out of Malaysia. And the bigger issue is that while the poachers are in the forest collecting this gaharu, they often get involved in other activities such as trapping and hunt wildlife, including endangered species such as tigers and elephants.
So did you spot any...
The gaharu trade opens the door, or it kind of gets people interested in going into these protected areas, which otherwise would be fairly safe. But the issue now is that the protected area, the forest will still be there, but the forest will be emptied out of wildlife.
So did you spot any wildlife, maybe today or the day before? You've been there for quite some time, right?
Yeah, well, we've put up some camera traps, and we have looked out for footprints, and we're very happy to see that even close to the edge of the reserve, we see lots of animal signs, including footprints of tapir, the big black and white mammal, and wild boars, and perhaps Ahimsa can say a bit more about what other animals that he's found here, because he has been working and putting up camera traps here for several years.
Interesting. I want to ask Professor Dr. Ahimsa, because he has been working on wildlife preservation for quite some time, and I also realized that you do a lot of large mammal conservation work, and one of it would be elephants. Share with us why elephants and why large mammals as your focus.
Well, I'm very interested in the ecological function of large animals. I think we need to look at the forest as a combination of plants and animals, and all play some role in ecosystem processes. And the reason why we work with elephants is because they are the largest of all the animals, and by being the largest, they're also unique. They are not similar to anything else. When they're involved in ecological processes, they play roles that not other animals do. So we cannot replace one elephant with 10 tapirs, for example, in the way they impact the ecosystem. So then it's kind of studying the extreme by studying, if we can study some what we call a functional group, some kind of a group of animals that play similar ecological function. And then elephants are in a functional group on themselves, and they are the extreme representation of big animals. Also, big animals are more likely to be threatened throughout the world. So then there's, on the one side, there's the very interesting ecological function they play. On the other side, there's the conservation important. These big animals are declining rapidly all over the distribution range. So then we need to learn how to conserve them if we want to have them in the near future.
Mm-hmm. So what is the current state of the wildlife in, maybe not just in Pahang, but in all the areas that you have done research within the Malaysian territories?
Yeah. Well, we work in Peninsular Malaysia. We have a project called the Management and Ecology of Malaysian Elephants, or MIM. And then MIM works all over the Peninsular Malaysia. And our impression is that the status of wildlife, particularly large animals, it is not good, but it's better in other countries in the region. So it is not a very positive or not a very optimistic assessment, but let's say that it could be much worse. So then we have animals like Sumatran rhinos or Javan rhinos that are basically gone from Peninsular Malaysia.
Oh, they are entirely gone? Or they are still endangered?
Javan rhinos are gone. They were gone in the 30s, in the 1930s. Sumatran rhinos, they are probably gone. There might be a few individuals left here and there, but from an ecological point of view, they're extinct. They're not playing ecological functions throughout the forest. Other animals like Seladang, the gaur, and even the samba deer, they're very rare. Okay, these animals that in normal conditions they should be more abundant in the forest. So nowadays they still occur. In some places they are common, but in many other places they are not. They are very, very rare. Animals like elephants, they are declining. We estimate that in the last 40 years, elephants have lost a very important part of the range in Malaysia. But still, there is, I would say, a healthy population of elephants that still can be conserved, and I think if we do the right thing, they can be protected for the future. When it comes to carnivores,
when
it comes to carnivores,
go ahead. Go ahead.
The charismatic one is the tiger, and large carnivores and large herbivores share some of the conservation issues. They are difficult to conserve, and they come into conflict with people. So, and also tigers are declining very, very fast from Peninsular Malaysia. I think we don't have a good estimate of what is the degree of this decline, but we can say that they are highly endangered.
Yeah, this back to the question, like, in your opinion, why all this is happening? I mean, at one point we can blame the poachers and all that, but what is the real root cause of the declining of all these animals?
Well, there's a combination of factors. When we talk about the big animals, by definition, these big animals need big amount of natural resources, food and space to do the social behavior. So then they're very sensitive to habitat loss or deforestation. You know that in Peninsular Malaysia, over the last 60 years or so, a big part of the forest has been lost, has been replaced by plantations or by urban areas or by infrastructure. So then when we lose this habitat, we are reducing the amount of area where animals can be without contact with people. Animals like elephants or tigers, they probably can live okay in poor quality forest. So then it's not only the loss of forest, it's also when we lose the forest, we replace by human presence, right? Either plantation or housing areas. And then we come into conflict with them. For example, elephants will come into plantations to eat the saplings of the rubber trees or the oil palm or the palm oil, and tigers will come and eat the livestock or even attack people. So then once that humans and wildlife are in close contact, then we don't tolerate them because of the conflict that happens, and then they eventually will disappear. So I think these two factors have been the main drivers over the past few decades.
I see.
In the case of tigers, poaching, and also in the case of rhinos, poaching has been also very important because these are targets. They have very high economic value. So when these animals have been killed to be sold in the international market. So then these combinations are the main things. As the population becomes smaller, then we have other problems like smaller population sizes. That is what happens now to Sumatran rhinos. For example, they cannot find mates. If you have very few individuals left and they happen to be very far from each other, the days in which the female is in estrus available for mating, she might not find any male available. So then there are a number of issues that come down the line with the small populations, but the main thing is deforestation, conflict, and poaching.
I see. So we have, because of that, we have very lonely group of rhinos around.
Yeah, probably the rhinos are less. They're probably very, very lonely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have a question to Teck on how much. Teck, how much of the locals are aware of this, and is there any awareness campaign or any active work by the civil society in terms of preserving the wildlife?
That's a very good question. The main civil society groups in Malaysia are the Malaysian Nature Society, MNS, WWF Malaysia, and also some smaller groups. And they each have programs that work with school children. They try and run campaigns in Pasar Malam to increase the awareness of the wildlife. But my experience talking with my friends and people I meet, and also when I think back to when I was a child growing up in Malaysia, is that most people don't realize that we have so many interesting large mammals in Malaysia. Most people don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, even
tigers.
I don't realize that we actually have a Sumatran rhino that is, facing extinction. I mean, to us, when we talk about animals, we think of the zoo. That's it. We don't really think about wildlife conservation and the forest itself.
Yeah, I think that really compounds the tragedy that these magnificent creatures are going extinct quietly, without people realizing it. I think if more people knew about it, then there would be more pressure on the decision makers to do something, to put funds to prevent their extinction. And so it's publicity through mediums such as Durian ASEAN Radio is so important for the cause. And so we certainly appreciate every chance we can to spread the word about conservation issues
But how much of the effort that the local government has done in promoting sustainable development and also environmental conservation?
Well, there are different levels of success. In some respects, if you go right down to the traditional management of a village, say by the Orang Asli, the kind of impact that these small villages would have on the environment is so small that you can say that they were already sustainable even hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And the challenge we face now is that we've gone through agricultural revolution, we've gone through an industrial revolution, and now we've got really such a rapidly developing industrialized society that any kind of effort towards sustainability is bound to face challenges because, we're not used to this kind of society which is revolved around motor cars and petrol, which is fundamentally unsustainable. So I'm sure the government has been talking about improving sustainability, but it's kind of a fundamental problem which we are all struggling with.
But on a larger scale, as in the region of Southeast Asia, is there any sort of active cooperation among the Southeast Asian countries or even the ASEAN bodies itself?
Yeah, there are many initiatives in ASEAN that work towards environmental conservation. In fact, there was an ASEAN Regional Center for Biodiversity that was set up more than 10 years ago.
More than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And are they making any changes towards the lives of these wildlife?
Well, one crucial area where the cooperation in ASEAN I see is the only way forward is actually in the conservation of the Sumatran rhino, because as you might know, they are found in Indonesia and in Malaysia. Mm-hmm. And the Malaysian population alone is probably not going to be big enough to sustain a breeding program. In fact, it failed so far to get enough males and males together and then breeding. And so now really the hope is for the Indonesians to cooperate with Malaysians on some kind of joint breeding program. Mm-hmm. Maybe Dr. Ahimsa would have a few things to add on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a very complex issue, and I would not like to step on anyone's toes because I know that there have been long negotiations. But if we think from a biological point of view, we have so few individuals. In captivity right now, I think there are 9 individuals, of which one is in Cincinnati, United States, 3 are in Malaysia, and the other 5 are in Sumatra, in Campos-Arceiz. So then, when it comes to breeding, we cannot act separately. I mean, we need to make sure that we coordinate efforts. Mm-hmm. Because there are very few females and males that are really fertile that can contribute to the breeding. So then we probably have 2 females and 2 males that can really contribute, and we will need to coordinate. And this is a good case for international cooperation for conservation. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that we leave the politics behind and we make sure we focus on our objectives, which is successfully breed some Sumatran rhinos.
In your view, has the effort been quite slow? I mean, they have set it up since 10 years ago, and the problem is still, the animals are still is still at the verge of extinction.
Yeah, let's put it. We are failing in the battle to save Sumatran rhinos and other animals in this situation. So then we need to be clear about that. We need to do better if we want to achieve our objectives. But I understand that it's complex and there are many agencies involved and there are many institutions and many organizations. So then I'm not directly involved in this work, and I don't know what are the main limitations that they are facing in order to function in a more coordinated way. And as I understand, they are trying to do this right now. So then, but I think overall we need to be aware that a conservation doesn't understand about administrative borders or national borders, and then we need to coordinate in an international way because this is a global problem.
If you can cite other countries which have successfully conserved their wildlife and environment, maybe you can give any example?
Well, I think there are a number of interesting international initiatives. For example, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei, they are involved in the Herd of Borneo, which is a 3-nation plan to conserve a big part of the land of Borneo, and I would say this has been successful in the cooperation. Let's see what is the result in terms of the conservation itself. But unless it has been possible to get these countries to agree on what to do and how to do. And I think there are other examples. It comes to mind now cases in Africa with transboundary parks that they go between South Africa and Zimbabwe or with Botswana. And they are being very successful because, again, animals are migrating across these countries.
Mm-hmm.
And the ecosystem is often, like the Okavango Delta, that the several countries, or the area falls in several countries, and you need international coordination in order to manage these ecosystems. So then there are cases of success, and we need to look at how these successes have worked and replicate. And also, I think it's a matter of will and understanding of the scale of the problem. I think often, from the political point of view, there has been the perception that these environmental problems, particularly wildlife conservation, are minor problems, and they haven't been taken seriously at the scale that they would be things like economic problems, for example. But I think once the countries take it more seriously, we know how to do international collaboration for things.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we are reaching to the end of the session. Anything to add on, Teck?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I would say that this is the time where we really need to start taking action, because we can really see the scale of the problem when we get haze coming from Indonesia, and then we can also see that we are part of the solution as well. And when we work together, for example, when Malaysia sent firefighters over to help Indonesia put out the fires, it shows that we can not only be synergistic when it comes to problems, but also when it comes to solutions as well.
Anyway, thank you very much, Teck and Professor Dr. Ahimsa, for your very enlightening view on conserving the large mammals in Southeast Asia, and also in particular Malaysia. And all the best with your work and your activity there in the remote jungle in Pahang. Thanks for speaking with us in Durian ASEAN.
Well, thank you very much.